essentially MC it from this point and do the next introductions. How's that? All right, so thank you.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you who have been to this event before, I'm the one who asked all the obnoxious questions. If it's not me, then it's her. So we're really glad that you're here. Some housekeeping things. Food, drinks at the bar. Food is free, bar is not. Bathroom is around the corner.
That's not free, though.
That's not free? Okay, you got to tip the bartender for the bathroom, apparently. We are so happy that you're here. There's a number of regular faces that we're really happy to see, and a number of new faces, and we're very excited to see you as well. There is a contingent from Envisage, so I will say props to you guys for joining us. Thank you very much. Other than that, these events have been really very insightful for people who are starting businesses and are interested in starting businesses. We've had a number of conversations where Brad's been sharing with us some of the questions about how do you start a high growth potential business. How do you have the right conversations with a co-founder? How do you start raising capital without going to the bank? And a number of other conversations that really help entrepreneurs get started. While we've had great conversations with those, I also wanted to have a little different perspective from someone who has been in business for a much longer time and is not really doing these startup conversations, but might be able to give a little bit different lens on what it's really like kind of behind the scenes to run a business. And so I would like us to welcome Steff from Envisage Information Systems, who has been running a small technology company in the Cornfields for 20 years, and in the last 5 years has grown exponentially, which is probably not what you intended. But I've known him for quite a long time, have worked in and out of Envisage while I was in college, and have been part of that family, and it's meant a lot to me. So I wanted to share that with you. And also Sarah, who works in Envisage, is going to be facilitating tonight and asking lots of questions, which she does oh so well, to kind of help pull the story out of Steff. So I just wanted to introduce them and hope you guys have a great evening. Thank you very much.
All right, so I'm going to get a little situated here. Can you hear me okay back there? Yep? Okay. The other thing I just wanted to add is I actually also live in Montour Falls. I'm a transplant from DC, and so very excited to be able to be here tonight and participate in this community, and also obviously share in some of the things that I've learned about Envisage by way of asking Steff some questions. So a couple things I wanted to let you know just by way of thank you very much, teeing this up. So we're going to try to keep the interview portion with Steff to about 40 minutes, no more than that, and then make sure that we leave time for you all to ask questions. Steff is aware of, what's that?
And then I forgot open mic.
Right, and then we'll have open mic, which is kind of part of the standard approach of these sessions. Steff does not know the questions that I'm going to be asking him. He does know some themes, and I'll just let you know there's kind of 4 themes that we wanted to talk about. One, just a very basic around kind of how did it get started. Really focus on what was hard, what were some lessons learned, and then really bringing it back to what makes sense in terms of advice to entrepreneurs in this region. So that's about it. And I've also asked a couple of people to help keep track of time, so I know Ariana and Lee are going to help make sure that I don't go over. So being inherently curious, sometimes I get a little lost in the questions. Anyway, so with that said, one thing that I wanted to ask, does anybody here, except for the folks in Envisage, does anybody here know what or have seen the acronym WFT? Sorry, I almost reversed that, which I'm sure people have heard. WFT. Okay, so this was really interesting. When I showed up at Envisage and I remember trying to get something scheduled with Steff, I looked at his calendar, and it was frequently, it would be obvious to see WFH, which is working from home. I learned that WFT means working from tractor. No lie, that's true. So with that said, I'm going to just get started here. So Steff, I want to just take a trip down memory lane, and I am going to refer to my notes here a little bit. So it's 1990.
Am I allowed notes?
No. It's 1990, and you're in a cornfield in Genoa, in rural upstate New York. Genoa has a population of roughly the size of Montour Falls, about 1,800. John, maybe you can confirm that for us. Okay. You have an infant son, a toddler daughter, and you decide that starting a software company is a good idea. So what was that about?
Some people don't think very well before they jump. It was actually, I have to say, about the fourth business I was involved in. I got into building businesses because I wanted to do farming, and I couldn't figure out how to farm and make money. So I figured I had to make money someplace else so I could eventually farm. So I was involved in working with Cornell University to build some things. From there, went and ran a trucking company with the idea of eventually buying it. Until one night, my wife, when the phone rang one too many times at 3 a.m., suggested that I find another career. And then on to writing software and running a retail computer store, and helping move from a kind of a box store to a high-end service store. And then from there, eventually moving on to starting Envisage with another gentleman who was in the computer store with me, and we both had a passion for solving people's problems. And I had left the software industry 4 times by then, and all 4 times I had ended up back in the software industry. So at that point I gave up and said, oh, apparently I'm going to do this for a while. So it was a really good business plan.
I got that. So one of the things I'm curious about, and having been at several of these sessions and heard from entrepreneurs in this community, there's this moment, right, or there's this, I mean, actually, how many people either have started or have dreamt of starting their own business, just by show of hands? Okay. And just out of curiosity, and not to put you on the spot, how many people have actually done that? Okay, great. So congratulations. So definitely less. So one of the questions that I'm really curious about is, what happened from the time, and again, in this instance, Envisage, although answer it however you feel it makes most sense, what happened from the time that this idea of, I have a dream about starting a business, started to become reality? And specifically, once that set in motion, what were 3 specific actions that you actually took?
So I think one of the best pieces of advice I got early on as we were starting down through this journey is figuring out how to get out of it. And it sounds very flip, but it was one of the best pieces of advice I got. Because what happened is it forced me to make some decisions about why I was getting in this business and what I expected to get out of it. Was it a lifestyle business? Was it, I'm going to earn my money and set up for my retirement while in the business? Was it a means to some other outcome? What was it? And so one of the most important things, early on was deciding why Rob Jetty, the co-founder, and myself were actually doing this, and what we expected to get out of it, and what our end point was, and what we wanted to look like while we were doing it. So we made some very specific lifestyle choices. That we did not want to get into a fast-growing company that consumed us totally. And we were willing to earn less money, get a little less prestige in exchange for some family life. We wanted to be in a business where we felt like we were helping other people, not making money. So what our driver was money was not our #1 driver. It was building a place where people really enjoyed working and helping people solve problems. And we figured if we did a really good job at that, we hoped the money would come along with it. And then thirdly was making sure whatever we were doing, we could sell at some point. Because the only way we were going to ever have something to retire with was to actually have this create a value that somebody else was going to want. Because we were never going to make enough money while the business was running to save for retirement. So those are like some key, kind of, if you get away from the kind of the fun and games of business, those are some very foundational things that really steered us into it.
So you just talked a little bit about, some of the things that drove you, the kind of company you wanted to create, and it wasn't about money. You talked about, and I think in the write-up that some of you may have received, you talked about sort of your North Star and your passion. So I'm curious if you could just talk a little bit more about what that has meant for you in your entrepreneurial journey. Like, what is it and what has it meant for you? How has it helped you make decisions or, get you through the times where you maybe thought, okay, I'm out?
So it goes back to knowing why you're doing the business and what you expect to get out of it. So for me, my North Star, as I said, getting into this business was to get out to farm and to do it in a way that I could enjoy my family and have a life afterwards. So those are my parameters. So for me, my North Star was always, am I making a decision that's going to help enhance the lives of the people who are working in Envisage? Am I making a decision that is going to actually attain my goal, which is someday have something of value to sell? And am I making a decision which stays within my values and norms of what I think is the right way to treat people in a business relationship? So I'm a very value-driven person from the standpoint of where I draw my lines on ethics. And one of my goals in business was to be able to look back over my business career and never have anybody say that they got shortchanged by me. So that means sometimes I have refunded money when I thought it was wrong. I refunded money when we had no money to refund, which my wife thought was wrong. But it's one of my drivers, it's one of my North Stars, is that when I look back over my life, I want to make sure that whoever I've done business with, whatever people have worked at Envisage, never feel like they got the short end of the stick. They may not like a decision I made, they may not like a direction the company went, they may not like the way we delivered the software and they were disappointed in us, but I never wanted them to feel like they got the short end of the stick. But that's my North Star, which meant I made a lot of business decisions that most business people wouldn't make, and whenever we had consultants come in, they would tell me I was nuts. And the typical story whenever a consultant came in to visit us over our 26-year history was they expected us to be out of business within 90 days. Very few expect us to be in business within 60 days, and the long odds were 90 days. In most cases, a lot of times I agreed with them, but I wasn't willing to give up because of my North Star. And I couldn't see another way to accomplish these things without this business. So, yeah, the North Star to me is very fundamental to every business decision we make. And the sooner you realize what it is that's driving you into business, the better chance you got to have a business that meets your needs.
So one of the things that I'm curious about is you talked about people showed up and whether it was doubt or kind of questioning or wondering, what is this guy doing? What would you say is one of the more outrageous, radical, or completely unreasonable decisions that you made that maybe other people kind of questioned?
The same one which I am called a hero for.
Okay.
Probably the most radical was, I don't know how many years ago now, 6, 8 years, 9 years ago, when a really big client came knocking and said, I want you to solve this problem that 6 other companies have failed to do. And I didn't know who they were, which is a good thing. And everybody in our company at that time, we were 15 people, had quite a roller coaster. A couple of times we'd look at closing the doors. Everybody in the company said, no way, don't do this. I basically said, we have the ability, we have the intellect, we have the technology. I think it's worth the gamble. I think it's worth going. And the reality was that it was either going to kill us or make us. There was no in between. I would say that's probably one of the most outrageous things that I did that actually turned out successful.
Could you give us a little more in terms of what about it was outrageous? It sounds like everybody else felt like it was, maybe didn't make sense.
Well, we're in a software company, so we write software. It's really a bad idea to enter a contract to write software when the people who are buying it have no clue what it is they want. And they want to do it at a fixed price. That usually is a recipe for disaster. So that was like the first warning sign is we got this big stack of requirements and they wanted us to review the requirements and commit to delivering it in 6 months. It typically is about a 5-year project and they didn't see anything wrong with that. So that was like an early warning sign. What I knew is we had already done this once for another client. We had been very successful at it. And my gut instinct was, these people, if we get the right people in the company, will understand that this is a journey they have to go on. And as long as we put the right things in the contract, that basically says, we will write what you give us specs for and what you give us test cases for. So in the end, our out was they could not define how to test this software. They had no clue how to test it because they didn't know what they wanted. So we were happy to commit to building it within the time frame they gave us and for the price they gave us, as long as we had change orders, so when they changed their mind, we could get charged more. And as long as we were only being tested for the quality of our delivery, based on the test cases they gave us before we wrote the code. Since they gave us no test cases before we wrote code, we were in pretty good shape. But from the outside, it didn't look it. But those are things like I learned over the years that I don't have to fight that battle at the outset. What I have to do is make sure the contract clearly states these are the rules of engagement. I don't have to try and make a big deal. I don't have to try and convince the client they're wrong. I just have to make sure the fundamentals are there. If I do, and we're working with reasonably rational heads, and usually you can find a few of those, it will work its way through. Now, we got really lucky. We got fired by this client along the way, and somebody else in that client organization was the reasonable head and said, you guys have done more under this other style of leadership than any of the 6 people before you, and have gotten us closer to the finish line. And I believe you guys stink as communicators, and you stink as managers in a big corporation. You're horrible, but you're phenomenal technically, and you're really good at problem solving. So if we augment the areas that you're weak in, which is communication and playing in big corporate space, and leave you guys alone to do what you're really good at, I believe we're going to get what we want. And at which point we got rehired by a different division. And that's who we ultimately delivered for, and we basically made that company a ton of money. At which point, it looks great now. It's like, oh, Steff, how are you so smart? Well, if those other guys hadn't showed up to say, hey, we like what you do, I would have been out of luck. And Envisage would be a dead company in the Cornfield. So, you know, if those people hadn't showed up, there was no Envisage, in spite of everything we've done. So that's, I guess, the other thing, as an entrepreneur, you know, I think we can't lose perspective that we control very little of what's going to happen to our business. We can control how well we prepare for it, we can control how we react to what happens, but a ton of it's out of our control, right? Think of driving your car to get here tonight. Of that experience, what did you have control of? How you reacted to the deer that ran out from the side of the road, but not whether the deer ran out. How you reacted when the light turned green or turned red, but not if it was going to turn red or turn green. They're totally out of your control. To me, that's a real key thing about an entrepreneur, is recognizing that most of the stuff is out of our control. So we better focus on what is in our control to be ready to deal with whatever's out of our control. And we got lucky. This couple people stepped up, and we had done enough pre-sell with them to understand that we were not just a bunch of idiots. We just didn't know how to communicate. And once they realized we weren't a bunch of idiots and we just didn't know how to communicate, they were all in. And like I say, it was very good. But you know, it was a very long week. In the week we got fired, in the week we got rehired.
So one of the things, there's a quote from Bill Gates, and it goes something like, it's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to learn or to heed the lessons of failure. So while I absolutely have some questions a little bit later about some of the things that contributed to success, I wanted to just kind of move into a little bit of, you know, what's been hard. So I'm going to read a quote that may be very familiar to some people. It's not a quote, it's a phraseology. Men wanted, sorry ladies, I'm not trying to be sexist, it's just what it says. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness. I'm really embarrassed. Okay. I was in denial. Constant danger, safe return doubtful. Honor and recognition in case of success. Anybody know who that was?
This trip to the South Pole, I don't remember, Edmondson?
Yep, Shackleton. So it was Shackleton. Supposedly this was an actual wanted ad, and 5,000 men showed up. So the question for you, Steff, is given that, right, it was very clear what people were signing up for, what do you now know about the realities of what you signed up for that you might not have known when you started out?
I definitely did not have an appreciation for how many times it came within a hair's breadth of costing me my marriage and my family. I had no appreciation for that. If I had known that, I never would have done it. Because I did not want to. That's a gamble that I didn't want to take. I am only now that we've actually, I'm going to say, kind of by the world standard, become successful after 25 years. look back and realize how much pain it's caused other people.